Hello, hello. Here drinking a little water to start this out. Abba has been bringing stuff for the prep for the 17th. This is imperative for those that are in the pilgrim pass or passage or path or however you want to call it. Something that you guys have to understand is the cleansing of the body and the spirit is the most important part of the experience. And the reason why Abba calls you to cleanse your body, which people call it celibacy plus the purge of all parasites in your body, is because these parasites are the ones that are initiating different kind of, I will say, addictions. Okay, overeating can be emotional, but also it is part of parasites and some other stuff. So we're gonna talk about the importance. Give me 1 second. The importance of sexual energy and the reason why your vessel is the purest connector to Abba. The anointing oil, the wellspring, the chi, the prana, the inner fire, the lamp within, the bridal chamber. Many people in nation believe that fire is being a loud person that goes and does good deeds and whatever. Yeah, it's part of it, but that's not the true fire. Fire is truth, and truth is matters and facts. And the anointing is received by you using that fire, not to burn bridges, but to cleanse your vessel. So let's speak a little bit about this and get to understand why it's so important. Sexual energy is the life force of energy itself. Therefore, if you are misusing this energy, you're losing money. You're probably would be more prone to be in contact with incubus and succubuses. And when you're in contact with these entities, they rule envy, jealousy, and obsession. There is a part of the twin flame journey, which was what I was going to search and I forgot. Give me 1 second. There's a part about the twin flame journey that has an obsession phase, and it happens because the obsession is not for the other person. It's about our own nervous system and our own psyche experiencing mirrors that you have not integrated within yourself. So when you find your mirror, when you find your twin, and remember, you do not have to have a twin flame, but you could be in a twin flame journey. Therefore, there are going to be mirrors and false twin flames in the experience. So the false twin flame is going to feel like the real deal. But then you're going to understand that there is no energetic connection. It is just, if you look at the post that I did earlier today, you can find in there the differences between dopamine rushes and true love. And this is fun because we don't understand our shadows until we actually go within and understand our nervous system and our psyche. Because if that doesn't happen, then you have an unintegrated shadow. So your wounds, the needs that you have that are unmet, your forgotten identity, your suppressed desires, your shadow, your spiritual memory, all of those memories, all of those bodily sensations, they're gonna come out and be triggered. When they are triggered, that's gonna set you off in a rampage of trying to calm your body's desires. And often a lot of people get involved with incubus and succubus energies that drain not only your energy, but it drains your pockets. So you got to be careful out there, because nowadays everybody believes that sexual energy is a toy. In ancient mythology and in ancient books and in the Bible, it's explained. And again, I'm spiritual, not religious, but in the Bible, as it is a blueprint, it explains the reason why sexual energy is so important. And that's why the invitation is for people to get married. So instead of being in sin, being in partnerships that they could create, right, and use that energy towards the pillars of that foundation, which is an institution where the two people become a family and they create from that energy. That's why like in the past I was saying, gotta be careful, because there are people that are profiting from exploding your sexual energy. There's others that are helping heal, but some others are just using your sexual energy. And how they do it with rituals and magic and spells and things like that, where they actually use their own sexual energy to force you into be binded to them, because the entity in them is wanting you to be attached to them. You got to be very careful. All right. In the twin flame, that type of connection that has the mirroring is very triggering. And when people are not aware of their shadows, it's just a mess. And trust me, I went through it, I published it all. So you want to see the history, go back in the posts. And let's say the majority of these mirrors is telling you this person is seeing in me something that I have not seen in myself. So that creates a lot of overwhelm, a lot of deep thinking, looping, a lot of emotional intensity, plus a lot of fixation. So your work, personal work, is actually, instead of interpreting this connection as a threat or these experiences as a threat, you need to actually, obviously, if they're red flags, what everybody calls red flags, then you have to let it go. But we're talking more about the transformation, because it doesn't matter if there's red flags in the environment. When you meet your mirror, regardless if it is your false flame or your true flame, this is gonna get ignited. So a lot of people that come into this type of relationships, of the twin flame relationship, they actually interpret the connection threat or a danger, because it forces them to transform and actually integrate the shadow so they can actually experience true unconditional love. So the majority of the people are going to express the truth from one another. And it's actually a truth that is bigger than the identity that they're living with. So it's a lot of trying to manage what you are indoctrinated and what your soul is actually understanding. Um, this type of obsession will show you a doorway into all the unsolved things that you had within you. Abandonment wounds, attachment patterns, childhood imprinted experiences, identity or fractures in your heart, and suppressed emotions is the most important, and as well as the shadow aspects. Now, when the obsession ends is because the lesson is integrated. So, not because the connection disappears, but because the charge or the duality kind of doesn't stop fully, but it calms down. So the obsession part is what ignites the journey, not the end destination. So consider it like your biological alarm clock telling you, okay, you need to face this, and that, so you can actually be prepared. So let's see. When Abba speaks about the main issue about a Christian not walking in the light based on sexuality, and when spirituality speaks of sexuality, the indoctrination of both terminologies, it's a little bit misplaced. Let me break it down. The church or the temples make you believe certain things about this energy. The spirituality make you think more open-minded about this energy. But the truth of the matter is that sexual energy starts, ignites, and is the base of. So that's why you have to be careful who you're sharing this with, because if you're sharing it with people that are there as takers, which are incubus and succubus, they will drain you, not only your physical body, not only your mental and your whole energy, but they are also gonna empty your pockets. And you got to be careful to discern who is the person that has been attacked by the entity and who's the person that actually carries the entity. And it's very important because it may not be you, but someone around you, energetic cord with you, that is pulling that string to get you out of balance so they can feed that entity. So let's go more into what Abba is showing us. Aside of cleaning the parasites inside of the body, cleaning the vessel from these entities is very important to live an abundant life. Because let's go to 1 Corinthians 6 and let's go to, it's a bit long. No, it's not that long. Let's go through it. If any of you has a dispute with another, do you dare to take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people? Or do you not know that the Lord's people will judge the world? So the Lord's people is not the temple. A lot of people think that when you go to a temple, you expose things to the preacher and then the preacher should take care of it. The how can I explain it so it's not misunderstood? In old eras, that was the way that they will solve like things within the church. But knowing that you are the church, you have to understand that the Lord's people is everyone that lives in the light and follows the statutes of what is to truly be sovereign and living in the light. I am not talking about perfection because I'm the most imperfect person in this world. But even with my imperfections, Abba is teaching me these things so we can be prepared for the 17th, which is the big change. I did feel the attack today. It was a hard one, yet Abba always present, and I bet altars blew up easily. Why? Because I know. I felt it and I sensed it. And I know some people have been doing sex magic on me because Abba allowed me to see the vision and the prophetic dream of when and how it was done and who exactly was doing it. So I decided not to return to sender because I know how weary this person could get. But unfortunately, because they don't know when to stop, I allow Abba to intercede. I did not do anything. Abba intercedes. He protects me. And when I'm covered with the armor of God, then whoever does whatever does is free will and it's law of cause and effect. Whatever goes comes around and it's a boomerang that it's going to hit somehow. So I don't ask for anyone to go through the things I went through. But if people continue with the same and same old thing and same old thing, and they don't learn that fire magic, sex magic, and all these things are not condoned by Abba, then it will be what it will be and it will last what it will last. That's all I can say. So let's start again with 1 Corinthians 6 and let's not deviate about it because it doesn't bother me anymore that people are ignorant enough to continue. But when he speaks, we listen, and that is part of my past. And if they want to continue on that, that's their problem, not mine. And I don't want to make it part of this experience. I want to leave that behind. So, lawsuits among believers. If any of you has a dispute with another, do you dare to take it before the ungodly? What is the ungodly? The ungodly is anyone that fakes being a Christian and doesn't understand what true spirituality and walking as a Christian means. And often it could be indoctrinated people from the church, like I was once, pastors from the church, like I've seen a lot, as well as family members that are Christians that are trying to impose the Christianity on another. So, do you not know that the Lord's people will judge the Lord? When you're sovereign in the word and you're sober and you understand the word, you do have compassion, patience, and all that. But when it comes to terminologies where your sexual energy, it's being touched by an entity that wants that energy for themselves, for either fortune, fame, money, or whatever it is, because those are the false and fake promises from the dark side. then what happens is that we that are standing in sovereignty become or can judge, not because we believe we're better than anyone, because we make a call and a judgment that protects our vessel. So, do you know not now that we will judge angels? How much more the things of this life? Therefore, if you have disputes about such matters, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned in the church? There's so many people scorned inside of the temples that you have to become the church. I've lived it, I experienced it. There is way too many people scorned in the church and in true life. I went through the whole maze, to the whole experiences to be able to speak with authority backed up by the word of Jesus and Abba that is in the Bible. And a lot of people believe in the Bible, but do not understand the Bible because they have been indoctrinated into following false practices. Therefore, if you have disputes such matters, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned in the church? Again, I say this to shame you. It is possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between believers. Why? Indoctrination is going to force the pastor that is already indoctrinated to call judgment based on ignorance instead of calling for peace with a solution. Why? Because churches or temples or pastors or indoctrinated people, instead of being welcoming and loving, have become marginalizers, or however you say that. They marginalize people, they reject people instead of being an open heart and receive everyone. And they do this often by judging the way they dress, because trust me, that has happened to me a lot. Judging the way they wear makeup or they look. Let's say in my culture, it is very common that we wear makeup not to stand out, just because it is customary from our country to wear makeup and look good and dress good. But when we're at home, we can be all chill, right? And when we go to the supermarket, we can just like go around and be okay. I am not that much on that standard of my culture, but I do love to take care of myself and feel good with what I wear, feel good with my makeup. I love glitters and stuff like that. So when I go to church and I go with makeup, they criticize me because they're automatically seeing me as a fake and false person or an ego-driven person. And my makeup has nothing to do with ego. Ego has more to do with the way that I used to indoctrinatedly or under indoctrination judge others because that's what they taught me, right? But at the end of the row, it doesn't match. It doesn't fit the puzzle, and it doesn't fit the customary unconditional love that Jesus and God is requiring from you. And it is possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between believers. That is so true because people are fanatically indoctrinated. Therefore, it is my way or the highway. And unfortunately, when you are going to have a relationship that is intercultural, different religions or whatever like that, They work when people have true unconditional love. They don't work when they're indoctrinated and they want to force the other to be like them. And trust me, again, I was there so badly. It was even funny. So it says, but instead, one brother takes another to court, and this in front of unbelievers. You see what I'm saying? So he is exposing the church, he's exposing the temples, he's exposing the hypocrisy that we humans live when we don't understand the true unconditional love that Abba is asking us to live by. The very fact that you have lawsuits among you means you have been completely defeated already. Why not rather be wrong? Why not rather be cheated? Instead, you yourselves cheat and do wrong. And you do this to your brothers and your sisters. Or do you not know that wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God? I heard this sentence from many people that say they are trying to live a better life because they want to be able to enter the kingdom or not have to tell Abba that they did something wrong, yet they're living a totally out of contents or content life based on the fact that they believe that no matter if you already know the truth, you can still commit errors and mistakes and still be forgiven over and over again. And yes, the promise of salvation is a promise of redemption, and it's a promise to an act of commitment in marriage with Abba. And when I say Abba, I'm not standing in front of anyone saying this is the way it has to be. But if you want to live a righteous life and you want to call yourself a Christian, then you need to understand what the true pilgrimage of Christianity is and not the false indoctrination that you have been taught, because you're sinning when indoctrinated. You're sinning and you're misguiding the herd. And that is actually something that when you get to those doors and you knock on them, like in Spanish they say, when you knock on St. Peter's doors, then you are actually gonna relive the experience because you're not gonna be able to ascend. And then verse 11, and this is what some of you were, but you were washed. You see, that's where we're calling on the cleansing of the body, the spirit, the mind, and the soul, because Abba needs us to be cleansed from starting now. So the entrance of this 17th of February and all the alignment of that energy is well distributed, and it helps support the center of the earth that only can be supported with unconditional love. And there's so many distractions out there that if you call yourself one of the 144 or a chosen one, we all need to actually take heed of these and stop engaging with ignorance. It's very important. Very, very important. Today, someone sent me a message and I was joking and sent something back, and then I said, yeah, that was engaging. I should not do that. So keep it on red and keep on moving, right? And that is what some of you were, but you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. So verse 11 is telling you that as soon as you take that leap of faith towards a good life, towards the life of the Spirit, then at that moment, you start anew, you start fresh, you're reborn. And whatever ashes were left behind, you use them to build the new era the New Christic era, and sexual immorality is very important. Why? We're not talking about, a lot of people take it out of context, so I'm not just gonna read this and explain it. It's easier. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything, you say. Food for the stomach and the stomach for food, and God will destroy them both. The body, however, is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. So what he means with these is when you actually make a commitment to be a spiritual being, the first task is going through celibacy, not because it is a sin to have sexual desires. What is wrong is to be spreading and jumping from one person to the other to feel or fulfill those desires, because in the moment that that happens, you're exposed to different entities, like I explained it in the beginning of the video. So it says, by his power, God raised the Lord from the dead, and he will raise us also. So that means that he's telling you, you have to cleanse your body, and then I'll give you the kingdom, right? Why? Because you automatically are going to work in yourself. You're going to look at the mirrors. You're actually going to work into understanding the true meaning of the words of Abba and his request from you to have a clean vessel. And the reason why is because without a clean vessel, your psyche is not going to be in the right place. Point blank. If you think you can just play around and go untouched, that's your worst lie from the matrix that you're believing. It is not the same to explore your body than to use it as a vessel to eradicate energies from another. And Abba will tell you specifically, he will send you dreams, he will send you nights where you're not going to be able to sleep and things like that, until he actually puts you in the place that he needs you. Now, not everybody is called, but those that are called, they have a free will choice of choosing his path or not. Regardless, the promise of choosing his path, it's way more peaceful and abundant than choosing the world or the flesh. And that is very important to understand. Shall I then take the members of Christ and unite them with a prostitute? Never. Do you not know that he who unites himself with a prostitute is one with her in body? He's saying it. The Jezebel spirits are in the people that do not have proper celibacy. And we're not saying that you have to be celibate to be perfect, but you have to choose a partner and make sure that partner, it's also in the same body cleanse of the spirit that you are. Because if not, then that's when those entities take over the experience. For it is said, the two will become one flesh. But whoever is united with the Lord is one with him in spirit. When you experience spiritual interactions, they will never compare to a regular sexual interaction. And nobody can speak about it until they actually live it or experience it. Unfortunately, people don't know how to actually understand it because it is a connection that is energetic and it is not a physical connection. It starts with the energy and then it prospers. But who am I to explain this when this world tells you that you could do whatever you want and be forgiven? And yes, you will eventually be forgiven, but you have to cleanse your vessel and you have to cleanse yourself. And I'm not talking about a specific pattern. I'm not talking about something indoctrinated or something that is like, oh, you have to do it this way or that way. You work yourself into it, because in the moment that you connect your shadow and you integrate your shadow, then you stop behaving in sexual immorality and you start protecting your energy because you want to experience a true union. Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. You see, he's saying it. Every time you do that, you're just polluting your body. Therefore, you can go to church 20,000 times and still it ain't gonna happen for you. It ain't gonna happen for you because you're not in alignment with the true words of Jesus and to the true words of walking the path with Abba. So that's why a lot of people that goes there with a false belief, they never find peace, because the promises of a salvation that comes from the external, it's not going to happen until they don't integrate the parts of them that needs to be integrated. So they will depend on the church to feel that they're doing the righteous things to be saved, but they will not if they don't understand the true word of Abba, because they're going to fall for the trap of the enemy. And that happens to everyone that is still not awake. And they're still attached to the flesh. And that's why I said what I said. I know my path. I know who I am. I know the knowledge that I have and the wisdom that I have. And I am not in a rush of finding another person that fulfills me, because I know exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. Therefore, what I do with my life and what I put in perspective and what I actually place on a category of most important is not trying to reach perfection. It's understanding me so I stop making the mistakes I've made in the past, so I can have a clear mind, an open heart, and the ability to have the gift of the spirit of discernment that you only can have when you stop living attached to the worldly. So you are, let me read this last part. Flee from sexual immorality or other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their body. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. So when I say to people, you sold your soul, is because, unfortunately, even when they say they're Christians, they're still called by greed, called by appearances, called by immorality, and will sell their own bodies to make a dime. So the end, he says, therefore honor God with your bodies. So when he's speaking about the body, he's not speaking about a temple. He's speaking about your vessel. He's speaking about your flesh and blood and organs and mind and everything. How do you know when you're actually connected to Abba? It's very simple. You can see the world through his eyes, and you don't feel resentment for projections. You don't feel attacked by others. Now, we still have, for an example, I do suffer PTSD. So I do have moments in which that kind of sensorial history that my nerves have can come up, but I will recognize it and I will tone myself down immediately. Before, I didn't recognize it and I will burst out because I was so used to defend myself. When I was being raised, I had to learn to force others to hear my voice around my household, because I was always dismissed as a person without, I would say, knowledge or intellect, based on the fact that I was always speaking like a little kid, like childish. But it was that my grandmother taught me to speak like that. So every time that I will talk about something serious that Abba was pressing in my heart since I was a very, very young kid, and showing them and telling them, hey, that is the church is talking about this, but you're doing the contrary. So why are you gossiping, or why are you doing this? They will try to shut me up because I was make them look bad in front of others. So when they started silencing me, it went to a point where, as a kid, you don't know what's wrong and what's right. But you know you have a voice and you have to voice it out. So the only way to voice it out was actually calling their attention, not with a tantrum, but what I will do is I will rebel myself. Rebel myself in the senses of, you can tell me to do something and I know it's good and I'm still going to do whatever I want to do, right? Because I thought in that moment that that will give me some attention from them. So I discovered that when the PTSD exploded, I discovered that those wounds were still lingering because of the mirror showing them to me, because of the reflections of other people showing me their projections. And then those projections came to actually liberate my mind, liberate my body, and help me reach the state of mind that I needed to reach to continue to connect with Abba and continue to profess what he's teaching me and what he's asking me to put out there so people can understand. Therefore, to honor Abba, you got to honor him with your body. You cannot be lukewarm, not lukewarm. You cannot be cold or hot. You have to be lukewarm with Abba, because you cannot go from one extreme to the other and think that you're right and you're and you're righteous and you're unapologetically yourself, because it is so overrated. That is such a lie, and that's the lie that is keeping you from living a good life. And all of us have been there, because in the world there's so many false teachings. But something that your soul knows is the truth. And when you sit down in silence, true silence, not false silence, but true silence, and you see yourself, the world is going to change in a moment, in a minute. And you're going to actually live for embracing what your heart truly wants and not what the world tells you should want. I wish I could explain it a little better. I wish I had, at times, maybe a more sweet and mellow voice, but that's not who I am. I am who I am, and I am in connection with Abba, and he opens my eyes, and he knows I'm not perfect, but he gives me the wisdom to see behind and between the lines. And when he teaches you these things, you can see people for who they are, and you still love them for who they are and not what they fake to be. Because the false part of them is that fear of truly feeling loved. And when they understand what their sexual energy is doing, then they can stop blaming the world for not having what they want. All right, guys. Like always, I wish that you find wisdom in the truth and the breakage of the myths that Abba is exposing. I hope that you find guidance. Nobody needs to be perfect, but righteousness is not perfection. Righteousness is commitment. And a lot of people are very disciplined with their jobs, but they're not disciplined with the spirit, and they're not disciplined with Abba, and they're not disciplined with their lives. And we all have to learn from that and move along, move forward, and not look back. Because if not, you become a statue of salt. And no one wants to see that. Please protect your body. Cleanse your spirit. And be ready for the change, because it's coming pretty soon. Take care.